Welcome to Business 375, Production Operations Management. I am Professor Dean, and I will be guiding you through the course. So, let's get started. What is operations management? The book's definition of OM is the set of activities that creates value in the form of goods and services by transforming inputs into outputs. In short, what that means is that we are interested in the transformation process. We'll be studying how to make the transformation of inputs, for example, raw materials, into outputs, for example, a product our organization sells, and we'll be looking at how to make that transformation more efficient and effective. We simply want to make that transformation process better. In particular, we're interested in enhancing its value. For our purposes, we define value as perceived benefit per cost. I purposely have a broad definition for value. It encompasses a lot of stuff. Again, it is perceived benefit per cost. By changing or modifying our transformation process, it might be quite simple or very complex, depending upon the specific setting we are dealing with. So how does operations fit into the overall organizational structure? To understand where OM fits in, I'm going to divide an organization into three broad areas. First, there's marketing, then there's finance and accounting, and then finally, there is operations. Sure, we could make much more fine-grained categorization and add other departments, but this very rough segmentation will allow us to understand OM's place within the organization. Marketing generates the demand for our products and services, often with what I like to call their magic wand, or really lots of money. And I can make fun of marketeers because I love them so much. Finance and accounting are the so-called, quote, bean counters, keeping track of the money the organization relies on to keep afloat. Yes, accounting and finance are distinctly different departments, but for our purposes, we consider them together. And then finally, there is operations, the group that actually creates the goods and services that the organization sells. This includes everything from procuring raw materials, to distributing the product to be sold, to handling recalls if those are unfortunate things that have to happen, all the way to recycling old products that are out in the marketplace. In essence, operations covers everything from dirt to dust. So why should we study operations? It should now be somewhat obvious why we would want to study OM. First, because operations cover such a large portion of what the organization is doing, it can be quite costly. Because of the amount of money often tied up within the operations side, we want to be able to perform those tasks better and save money by doing so. Second, we should want, and really maybe need, to know how goods and services are produced. For example, were your shoes made overseas by child labor? Are the products you purchase made with environmentally friendly and sustainable best practices? In the last decade, we have seen a huge shift in American consumerism caring about such practices. So what are we going to study? The book covers lots of different areas that OM can address. Unfortunately, we will not be able to cover them all, but here are the topics we will be covering. First, we'll do the introduction, which is what we're doing now, basically this video in Chapter 1. Next up, we'll be looking at managing quality, which is covered in Chapter 6 and Supplement 6. Then we'll move on to process and capacity design, which is covered in Chapter 7 and Supplement 7. Then we'll move into one of my favorite parts, linear programming, which is in Module B. That's at the back of the book. All the modules are at the end. If you've taken Business 370 Management Science, you will have been exposed to this, so that's actually a good thing. It should make this topic much easier for you. Then we'll move to supply chain management, covered in Chapter 11, which feeds nicely into the next topic of transportation models, which is found in Module C. Then we'll move on to inventory management from Chapter 12, and finish up with short-term scheduling from Chapter 15. So what are goods and what are services? How are they different? We often divide the output from the production/operations into two categories, goods and services. Goods are characterized by the fact that they are tangible products. That is, you can pick them up in your hands, put them on a shelf or a warehouse, count them in inventory. They often have a very consistent product definition that consumers are very familiar with. Additionally, their production is often separate from their consumption or purchase. Services, on the other hand, are often intangible and unique with high customer interaction. The production and consumption often occur simultaneously. For example, if I go to a salon to get a manicure, I have to be physically present for the service to occur. Many services are also knowledge-based. Here you can think of lawyers, doctors, dentists, accountants, etc. So one of the things we're concerned with in this course is productivity. So what is productivity? It is simply output divided by input. This ratio can be either single factor or multi-factor. A factor is simply an input. It's another name for input. For single factor productivity, this means we are only considering a single input when calculating productivity. With obvious limitations to using single factor input, we often instead consider multi-factor productivity. With many different inputs, we have to convert them all to the same units. Many times that common unit is currency, for example, US dollars. The goal of the management team is to improve productivity for the organization. There are several ways to do this, as should be readily apparent from the formula shown on the slide. First, we could increase output while keeping input constant. Productivity would go up. Second, we could keep output constant while decreasing input. Again, productivity would go up. And third, we could increase output while also decreasing input. That is best case scenario, but very difficult to accomplish. Each of these three approaches has its own advantages, hardships, and shortcomings. So this gives you a short introduction to the course. I will hopefully have you listen to more videos later on.